All right, strewn all over the table here is my Extreme Flight 60-inch laser. Number one reason why I wanted to get this thing and make the investment in time and money is because I want to become a better aerobatic pilot. I have, the Crack Yak, love it. Have the elevator Skywing, 48-inch. But everybody says bigger flies better. So 60-inch is going to fly better than the 48-inch, of course. So anyway, what I'm going to do is kind of walk through some of the stuff, like the fuselage, some of the things that were really impressive. It's funny, one of the first things they say in the instruction manual is go over and remove all the wrinkles. And I've looked over everything, and guess what? I can't find any wrinkles. So the way they cover, it is just mind-blowing. And I guess, because the people who are doing it every day, all day, and they're masters. The other thing that's amazing to me is how light this is. I mean, this doesn't weigh anything. I'll probably go through just for fun and weigh it and such, but just the way that they, if you can tell, I don't know if you can see, it's just sandwiched. It's carbon fiber and ply sandwiched, basically a carbon fiber ply sandwich on a lot of this material. So it's super lightweight and super durable, stiff. I mean, it's just amazing. So pretty excited about that. Here's where the AM600 is going to go. Underneath will be the ESC, radio, battery, working on all the servos. I'll go over all the equipment that's going in it. I already talked about the T-motor, so we don't need to do that. But, just the whole process of assembling. Of course, I'm just going to go through what I always do. I'm going to take you along the ride for the assembly, point out some things. I mean, when you're investing a couple bucks in a plane, and that's where this is at a different level, where the servos alone are, some of them are $80 a piece. And, that's a big investment for a plane that you're going to be doing all kinds of crazy stuff with, hopefully. Anyway, I'm going to take you along the ride on the assembly, setup, and it might be a couple parts because I have a feeling this is going to take a while. Well, at least longer than most of my planes, right? So anyway, I hope you stick around. It's going to be fun. First thing you need to do is download the manual and go ahead and read the whole thing first before you start assembling anything. A lot of really good information in there from the assembly as well as after it's assembled and you're tuning it up. There's a lot of great insight in that. All right, seriously, those edges are kind of sharp. My hands are sensitive. I don't know. Look, all I'm doing is just knocking down that edge just a little bit with some sandpaper. It's going to help you out, I think, in the long run when I'm jamming batteries in and things like that. So I just thought it'd be a good idea. All right, now applying just thin CA everywhere I can. A couple places where I notice there might be a little gap, I'll use medium CA, but just making sure that everything is locked in well. Got a fan running because with all that thin CA, it was getting pretty strong. All right, we're going to work on the wing. First thing I'm going to do is insert this servo into here. Fortunately, it's too big, just by a hair. So that needs to sit in there. This wire needs to get run. There is a little structure in here, a little piece of plywood, which interferes with this part of the servo. So what we're going to do is remove just a little bit of material with a file on the inside. The outside, I'm going to do the same. Little file, little sandpaper work, just to open this up ever so slightly so this drops in perfectly and routes the wires out here. So add a little extension and a keeper, and then I taped it with Blenderm just to make sure nothing's going to happen with that. So we're going to go through the process of just eating away and nibbling away at this until the servo fits perfectly. Stick around. Okay, so after using the file, hobby knife, sandpaper, these kind of things, and just getting it so removing material so this one slides through. Funny thing is, some of the different brands, this is Pro Modeler, this is Theta. Theta might have fit in there just fine, just the way it was. It didn't need any work. This one does. Now what I'm going to do, put in the horn, control horn here. Really important to make sure really important to make sure this sits flush all the way down. On the other wing, I had to dig out a bunch of material. It was not going in at all. Therefore, a hobby knife and this to kind of work my way around it to get all that material out of there, so then this thing would fit down all the way. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to scrape this all up. Again, that's all worked up. I'm going to put this down. One more test fit. Test fit a lot, because as soon as you get this thing down, it ain't coming back out unless you, I don't know, soak the heck out of it with solvent. All right, so we're good there. I'm going to grab my medium CA and my thin CA, and I'm going to make sure you're putting it in the right way. Let's see, we're going to get this going. Get some medium in there. Get some medium on here. Medium on that. And then quickly shove it down. And I'm going to get one drop of thin on either side. Hold it. Servo arm, get that on there. Before I get that on there though, I do want to set up one of the control rods. And there are several control rods. You have 3 this size, wing, and I can't remember, I think rudder. And then you have one that's significantly longer. And so anyway, we're going to put those together. And there were a couple ways to do it. One was chucking this in a drill and getting it spun on. That's one way to do it. I'm just going to do this now because I've got it in front of the camera. But I'll needle my little drill. And I'm going to put one drop CA Shoot, got it in the wrong way. There are 2 sides. There's a thick side and a thin side. Push that down. All right, now we're ready to screw that in. And we have these screws here. What I kind of end up doing is okay. A lot of dry fitting going on here. You know, I'd put in the control horn, it wouldn't slide in all the way, wouldn't seat fully. So using, in this case, I have a file plus a hobby knife. Careful, don't go all the way through. You'll poke a hole on the other side, which will really piss you off. So just be cautious of that. Be slow and methodical before you lock this thing in with CA. So just take your time. Using a little medium CA inside the slot as well as on the control horn. And again, I scuffed up that control horn with some 120 grit sandpaper. Slide it in and then hit it with some thin, just 1 drop or 2 drops of thin on either side, and that locked it in pretty good. So I dry fit my horizontal stab, but I want to make sure that the distance between like the edge of it and the wing tube is the same. So one of the things I did though is mark on the wing spar, that carbon fiber spar, exactly 9 inches. So I'm going to be consistent on both sides. Just use my tape, measure it, tweak the the horizontal stab just a little bit to make sure that those numbers are exact, and then hit it with CA. Once everything's perfect, hit it with thin CA. I kind of angle over, as you see there, I'm tilting it, putting a seam on either side, and then flipping it over and doing the underside. I also did whatever I could to get more CA in through the servo holes. All right, so making some good headway here. I have put in the rudder. There's little holes that basically line up with the existing CA hinges. They should be, according to the documentation, around 1 millimeter apart. And what I have done is I've put, pushed it together, worked it, feel good about the distance. So just wanted to get everything nice, tight, and the way it should be. So now all I do is put on a couple drops of CA. I'm going to do the bottom one here first. And drop there. Got another one here. Got another one right there. Let those soak in. Work this hinge. I'm going to flip it over and just put a couple drops on the other side. Really kind of hard to film, frankly. Same process for everything on these control horns, right? Dry fit, scuff it, medium CA, thin CA, done. Doesn't take a lot of time, but just make sure it's in there properly and all the way seated, or else, yeah, again, you're not going to be happy. All right, I already put on the elevator servo, but did want to kind of go through the process of putting in this. Similar to the wing, frankly. It's just placing it in the spot. These thetas fit perfectly in these already existing holes. You can't see it. Fit perfectly in the existing cutouts that Extreme Flight has. So this is going to slide right in here. I got to run this cable down, and inside inside the fuselage, I don't know how I'm going to get this on camera, but I'll try. Inside the fuselage, let me get some lights on the subject. Inside the fuselage, there are little hooks that will grab, or at least hold, the servo extension, so it's not flopping all over the place. Kind of tough to get them in there. There's a couple tricks I'll show you here in a second. At least for some people it might work. For some it might not work, that trick. Anyway, all I'm going to do, put this in, run that, make sure everything's good, and then make holes for the screws. Take this out, hit it with thin CA, screw those in. They're already set. All the grommets and brass inserts are in, ready to roll. And that's it. After that, connect this guy. I've already pre-installed the control arm, or set up that with the ball links, and all we need to do is then put it where it needs to go with the control horn. So So the landing gear, 4 screws, washers, little Loctite, you're good to go. Make sure that that landing gear rakes forward a little bit. So that's it. You know, it's a pretty quick process to just screw that whole thing in. So now let's put on those fairings. And by the way, put those on before you start messing with the wheel pants. Yeah, I'll tell you. No, never mind. So fairings. I dry fit them, made sure that they're in the right orientation. Then put some painter's tape above it where I don't want glue. Scraped up where the carbon fiber is, you know, so the glue adheres well. Squirted on a bunch of goop. You could use silicone as well, something that can be removed without, you know, destroying anything. And basically a couple applications of goop to get to the point where now the fairing sticks on it. Remove the painter's tape and looks pretty good. Documentation for the wheel pants couldn't be any easier. They just basically go together just like the documentation. Wheel slides in. You got a stud, the axle that gets hooked on with a bolt, and then you have a small screw. You might have to pre-drill that screw, but other than that, pretty simple process. Attaching the tail wheel is pretty simple. A couple screws, little CA to harden those screws, the holes, and you're good. Torque down the screws that hold the whole unit to the fuselage, but don't torque down the small screw that goes into the actual rudder. It needs to move a little bit. You'll see what I mean as I'm implementing it here. These are threaded, so as you put that on, it's locked in place now. Okay, I can't turn that anymore without stripping something. I'm putting mine on the middle hole, not on the far outside hole. And now we'll put on a washer and a nylon lock nut. And I've got a driver here, and I will drive that on to where it's tight. Okay. Now we got that moving perfectly. Gonna undo that right there. Put this on right like so. Tighten that. And this has a nut which we need to put on a little Loctite. The screw actually has a little on there, but I wanted to add some. Get that there and drive that home. Okay. Now we need to get this to line up with that, which means there's some screwing to do. It's too long. So we're going to reduce that Come back. Nope. Still got more to go. That's on there, and as I look at the aileron, it is not right. Now, my servo moved, so it's not going to be perfect. I'm going to center it. Alright, so now it's centered, and I can tell it needs to go in just one more full turn. Maybe. Oh, I like that. Alright. Washer, nylon screw, hex driver, and nut driver. Tighten that down, and that's it. This plane was pretty well designed for this motor, the T-Motor AM600 and the speed controller. I do an entire video on it. Right here is a link to it, and there'll be a link in the description on that whole motor installation. Wrinkles eventually did appear, and the only place I've seen them so far is on the fuselage, mainly on the turtle deck. So my heat gun, or my iron, 330 to 350, no pressure, just very lightly touching the iron. Initially, it started making more wrinkles, but then everything started basically shrinking properly, and no more wrinkles, all good. Here are the side force generators, and they come with these little guys right here. These need to be glued on. I use what they recommended, Gorilla Glue Clear. I use a little sandpaper to rough up the plastic. Made sure that the film on here was clean. Put those down, made sure they were perfectly aligned with the holes, and that's about it. Seemed pretty simple. Works well. They're stuck on. We're good there. Let's walk through the battery compartment and where I placed everything and how I did all that. So first off, got my receiver, have AS3X Plus on here, got some tuning to do there, got the aileron split up, got everything connected there, labeled everything. Try to tidy everything up with zip ties to make it so things aren't flopping around too bad. Antennas, one antenna is up in the turtle deck right about here. The other antenna is over here. One's horizontal, one's vertical. Here I use, instead of going through this, sharp, carbon fiber sandwich material, because it is kind of sharp, what I did was made a couple little grommets by taking this craft foam, boring a hole through it with in this case, it's a 357 shell. I taper that edge and sharpen it so it cuts a hole. So if I pressed on it, it would cut that hole. Then I cut out a block and I glue it on with foam tack, one on the bottom, one on the top. And that gave me some nice grommets, if you will, that prevented, that's going to prevent these wires from getting, boogered up, cut, whatever. The other thing I did down here is I 3D printed a little block for my XD90, and I glued that in there with hot glue. So if I have to get it out, I can use denatured alcohol, and hot glue just lifts right out. It's great stuff. Velcro, normally I don't like it, but with this, I'm going to have a little Velcro and a strap. Battery's not going anywhere. Still haven't figured out where my battery's going to go. So I've got this set up. And then I'll specifically put down marks for the weight of the battery that I'm trying. Right now I'm going to just do a 3300 HRB. And that'll be it. I have a 4000 HRB. Don't know if I'm going to fly that. I don't know. Haven't figured it out yet. So there's some tune in there. You've got a decal sheet, and you've got to cut out all the decals if you want to apply them. I put some of the decals on the plane, not all of them. We'll just see what else I want to put on there, if I want to put all the stars on the tail section. I'm not sure yet. Anyway, you got to cut them out and then they apply pretty easily. It's not a big deal. Use a kind of a straight edge or a little squeegee thing to get them to lay flat, and they look great. All right, she's all ready to go, all assembled. Everything's set up. Really, I'm ready to maiden. If the weather cooperates, then we'll do that, and I'll show that video. So hopefully you learned a lot about the assembly, how simple it is. I would say the only thing I would do different is maybe instead of using those Pro Modeler servos, buck up for another 20, 30 bucks and buy all Thetas. That should have done that, but oh well. I kind of wanted to experiment with the Pro Modelers. Maybe that's not the best way to experiment on a nice fancy plane. But anyway, the motor, as you saw, it installed it just screwed right in with a little bit of adjusting as far as on the spacers. That was simple. Everything about this plane as far as the assembly was simple. It just take your time. That's all. Just do it right. Make sure everything is locked in properly. Make sure the battery compartment, everything is nice and tidy, and that's kind of fun to do. Anyway, hey, if you have any questions, shoot me a comment. Descriptions below for the other video on the combo unit as well as the motor installation. So if you have any questions on that, take a look at that, leave a comment if you have that. Anyway, stick around. Eventually I'm going to maiden this thing, and that'll be on another video. Take care. Have a great day.